Nigeria's economy is placed on the edge over the ravaging impact of the United States of America President Donald Trump's administration tariff, which is wreaking havoc on global stocks and economies. Economists and financial experts have raised an alarm over further economic woes in Nigeria triggered by the shockwaves of the global trade war. Specifically, experts warn that the ongoing global trade tension will affect Nigeria's 2025 revenue target, following declining oil prices, stocks, and exchange rate depreciation. The developments come as the world stock markets experience a bloodbath. On Monday, with the FTSE 100 shedding 4.4% and Wall Street's S&P 500 dropping as much as 4.7%, in fact, it's much higher than that, during volatile trading. With these new developments, amid the meeting of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's economic management team to appraise the various scenarios in the ongoing trade war and advise the federal government on the way forward, Nigerians are looking forward to solutions by Tinubu's administration to salvage the current economic quagmire. Joining us now on this show as we take a look at the economic uncertainties facing the world, and indeed Nigeria, is Paul Alaje, an economist. Good morning, Paul Alaje, for joining us on the morning show.
Good morning, Dr. Abati, for having me. Good morning, Rotos and Vipa. Thank you so very much for having me.
Well, Paul Alaje, a cocktail of issues. So I don't need to ask any long question. The introduction already takes care of the issues involved and all of the developments. And you are an economist. This is your subject area. What do you think about Trump's tariffs, the impact on Africa, the response by various economies, and what Nigeria is planning to do beyond the woolly statement that I think that the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment issued, and this promise that we're going to now call a meeting where Nigeria will take a decision and the way forward. Well, I don't know. You are the subject area expert.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. First, we need to know the mission or the reason behind President Trump's decision. The reason behind his decision is economic dominance. He wants America to remain top when it comes to economic evaluation around the world. And he feels that America has been exposed to high tariff around the world. And he tested it in 2019 when there was a trade war between America and China especially. But the return of Trump has revealed to the world that this trade war will go certainly beyond China. If you observe very carefully, sir, in 2019, in spite of what many told President Trump, the President of America at the time, that this may lead the world into a recession and that if there is any economic crisis or any major shock around the world, it may take the world down in recession very, very quickly. You would also observe that it started affecting the China economy at the time, and when COVID came, it was just a smooth ride for Chinese economy, American economy, and all economics around the world to start dropping into recession one after the other. The world beyond Nigeria is faced with high risk, and this, of course, will extend to Africa. I give you another instance. When President Vladimir Putin started war on Ukraine, it started just as two countries in Eastern Europe having challenges. But Kenya started feeling it, Nigeria felt it, Rwanda felt it, virtually all countries in Africa felt it. Then it came to our turn as Nigeria. The truth is that I've heard some government officials said the Nigerian economy is protected against the policy that President Trump is making. Well, I would say to an extent of selling of crude, maybe the person that spoke may be correct. But when you look at the economy at large, we have started feeling the impact from exchange rates. It will affect us. Beyond that, it will also affect us when it comes to what the commodity we are selling abroad, other than crude and agriculture, it will affect us. What is not very clear is the role of AGOA that will soon expire, that agreement that will soon expire. If America will introduce tariff or not, if they don't, then it's good. But if they do, then the rest of Africa, we need to have a rethink. So I must say that the impact of this tariff will affect us, not just because we are buying or selling to America, but because the world is a web. If America is selling to Japan and Nigeria is trading with Japan, and anything that we buy from Japan that Japan has input from America or is selling to America, it will certainly have effect on us. What will be the quantum of effect? It depends on how high, how huge this impact is on different trading partners around the world. American role in the world is very significant. So all African countries, especially Nigeria, one of the key players in Africa, must understand that it will affect us. How will it come? First is inflation. So we have seen Nigerian inflation moderating, and it's very difficult to actually say that it's moderating, because what we did was change of methodology. We were at 34%, we adjusted methodology, and it came to 24%. So, but in the real sense, prices in the market that we have started feeling some heat, though very marginal, might go back again. Maybe not exactly just on food inflation, but I can tell you on import commodities. So we're going to be faced with import inflation. And exchange rate is still very uncertain, because if prices increases and we have to import, as we are still doing today, of course, it's going to have clear impact on our economy and on us as a people. So we need to sit up. Well, do I think that we can solve this challenge overnight? The answer is no. But I know that certainly there are things that can be done. A lot of people have also asked, does it mean America is now going to be a great country overnight? I think it's important we speak to President Trump, that this policy will work for him in the short term. But when it gets to medium and long term, even America's economy will be largely affected. You cannot dominate the world with high tariffs. Your population is not...
all right, Paul, I totally get where you're going. And just as you continue on that trajectory, I just want to throw some more ideas onto the floor. Namely, the fact that we have our 2025 budget, which is pegged at a number of, which has a number of assumptions. Exchange rate, oil price, even inflation as well is an assumption that was created there. Yesterday, we heard the economic management team saying that they are contemplating whether the budget would need to be rejigged. What do you think we need to do with regards to the budget? Would it be too drastic an affair for us to rejig it? Or do we need to go back to the drawing board, given these very sudden global change of headwinds?
Yeah, first of all, we need to know that it's important for us to go and perhaps rejig the budget. So economic team is looking at, I think we are smelling the coffee now, because if the price of crude drops down to $40, I tell you, Nigeria cannot survive it. Of the reality of today, look at our budget, over $30 billion. And the assumption is over $70 per barrel. So if, as we speak, the price is dwindling, and not just in the oil market, we have seen what happened on capital market around the world because of tariff war, and not all countries have responded yet. What I do is that more countries will still respond. So clearly speaking, when it comes to the target of inflation, President Tinubu has announced 15%. I spoke with your colleague. I said 15% of the old methodology is not realistic. If we were to use the old methodology, inflation today would have remained around 32–33%. Yes, we have adjusted methodology, so we will not be comparing apple and banana. So that 15% needs to be readjusted in the reality of today's methodology and reality of what is happening around the world today. Secondly, talking about like revenue targets, it's obvious that it may be difficult to meet up with our revenue target as we have projected in the budget. So what are we faced with? Are we going to now look for new revenues, which is another option, but a very difficult option, or we go borrowing? When we borrow this time, it certainly have implication. Of course, President Tinubu administration combining subsidy removal and devaluation of currency has been able to reduce debt to GDP from 98% to around 68%, now going to 70% of our revenue per annum. If we borrow more, it only makes sense to say that percentage may go up. So in the short term, these are very few options that are available on the table. But most economic solutions don't come in the short term. At best, they come in medium term. And that is why we have continued to maintain and sustain that what we deliver Nigeria out of economic quagmire, not just now but in the near future, is manufacturing. I'm not just saying production, manufacturing. Our manufacturing component of the GDP must increase to 40%. This one that we have sandwiched manufacturing and production in our GDP numbers, we are doing agriculture and service, and in between we have production, and that production, you see manufacturing taking a small component. That is what we need to expand, such that even when there are externalities or shocks around the world, the impact will be there, but it will not be devastating to the point that we are going back to adjust our budget. And I want to believe that we need to do this, especially when we consider factors that will make this a reality, from electricity, among other policy factors that I believe that the economic team of Mr. President can quickly look at and make Nigeria a country that to a large extent our economy will be resilient beyond what we have been speaking about in the last 2 decades of high dependency on imports, among others.
All right, Paul, please. I think it is important that the unreasonable demands of the Trump administration are highlighted. There's a question here. I'm representing the YouTube community. AKN says, please ask Mr. Alaje, when are we meeting with Trump and what will the discussion be like? What is the outcome? If I use Afrobeats as an example, a lot of Americans listen to Afrobeat. If we assume Afrobeat is an export to the US, more Americans listen to Afrobeats than Nigerians listen to rap music or listen to Taylor Swift. If President Trump wakes up one morning and says, I don't like the fact that you have more Americans listening to Afrobeats, we have to balance that out. What would President Tinubu do by meeting up with him and talking to him? Is that going to change the consumption patterns of Americans that listen to a new Burna Boy album or listen to a new Thames album? The Japanese are going to America. Giorgio Meloni of Italy is going to America. I hear a South Korean delegation is going to America. What is the outcome? It's not going to change anything because the consumption patterns of the businesses and individuals that import from the US from other countries will not change. So what is the Nigerian team supposed to do? I really do want you to speak to, because Trump wants to reduce the deficits that the US has with other countries overnight. It's not possible. So this request is unreasonable.
Well, economics around the world, in our Global Economic Association, we have similar recommendation, and we've continued to maintain that, yes, Trump will make gain in the short term, and this short term cannot outlive 18 months. Unfortunately, America's economy will be badly affected if countries take a stand, even though there will be casualties around the world, especially in Africa, Eastern Europe, in Asia, and in Southern America. These casualties is what will even take the world into a recession not beyond 2027. So it's important for nations to know that if you retaliate beyond measure, it may take the entire world down. It is true that Nigeria exports Afrobeat to the United States. But Mr. Rotus, at what cost? You've been to clubs in the United States, you've gone on streets of the United States, and you see people, Americans, dancing to Davido, Burna Boy, dancing to Whiskey, among other great musicians that God has blessed Nigeria with. The question is, do we place value on these Afrobeats that is played on the street of America? I can tell you, the answer is no. Our government at best is not making, as of today, any money from the United States. What they do is they go on YouTube, stream or download some of those music, take it to their clubs, and they play. But when it comes to iPhone, I don't know if you use iPhone. I can tell you that, yes, monies have been made on iPhone because tariff has been charged on it. You can look at Ford as a vehicle. Money has been made on it. So Nigeria is not that we are not producing. Rather, we turn our home production to Father Christmas. because we have not decided to come together that an economy is as important as the people that live in it, and understand that even though you may think that those in Afrobeat are not contributing, they are contributing immensely. Because when you go to Europe and America, you see, you observe as many of them want to listen to not just African music, but especially Nigerian music. So it is not their fault that we have not placed value on what we produce. It is our fault that we have underrated our current production capacity, especially in music and in movie industry. So I think government needs to intervene and provide necessary support, not to over-regulate the industry, but to make sure that it becomes something of value to those who are producing, because that has an entire value chain, and most importantly, to our government in terms of revenue. Then perhaps President Trump, we know that Nigeria can also render revenue. I noticed that you mentioned that one of the viewers asked, what meeting should we be having with President Trump? Well, the table is already lopsided, because when you look at the currency that we determine, it's an American currency. If you also look at the trade between the two countries, it seems to favor America. And is America even feeling that Nigeria is that important to them this moment today? When you look at the numbers, the answer is no. So that is why I say that the companion of food shall be destroyed. Africa needs to come together. First, look at the external factor and look within Africa. Where is our production zone? What is America depending on us for? Until that time, you don't go to negotiation table by shouting or arguing or by talking or raising your voices. It's based on your capacity to produce. And this is where I think Nigeria and the rest of Africa should be thinking about.
Dr. Alaje, you are an economist. I would like to draw your attention to a major story in this day newspaper today. I think it's the lead story, which says that the Office of the U.S. Trade Representative has now submitted a report to the U.S. Congress and President Trump. And apart from the 14% tariff imposed on Nigeria, along with other countries under the baseline and reciprocal tariffs framework, that report is now saying that Nigeria has issues in terms of trade balance with the United States. And this will have to do with, the report says, trade barriers, with customs practices, with corruption, with our BPP, Bureau of Public Procurement, non-compliant process, and that Nigeria has an import ban on about 25 products, including bottled water, beef, used clothing. What do they call used clothing now? Is it Boscono? Or whatever they sell somewhere at Yaba bus stop, and a range of other issues, and products. So what do you think the United States is trying to do? To turn Nigeria into a dumping ground? Is the U.S., by that report, trying to say that Nigeria should remove the import ban on those 25 products, specifically agricultural products and others? What should Nigeria do now that the minister in charge of finances, there's going to be a meeting? They're just holding a meeting. What should be our response? Should we stand up like Singapore, like South Korea? Or should we just like Zimbabwe say, look, anything American can come into Nigeria?
Well, the answer is in the question. Look at Zimbabwe economy. Look at Singapore and the other economy that you cited, Doctor, in your example. You see where Zimbabwe is. You even look at their currency, look at the economy, the inflation, poverty level. It's obvious. The difference between the first two countries and Zimbabwe is that they were purposeful and there was coordination, active coordination in the economy. For us, I doubt if we have gotten there in terms of economic coordination. Some of the policy may appear annoying, but it is not sufficient for us to say a yes or a no. What is important here is that all economy, one way or the other, must protect the people. And that is why when government came up with policies about 2 years ago, I was very quick to say that don't make policy to satisfy some desires without, forgetting that there must be some element of protecting your own people. And that is why today I say that central bank is back, intervening in the market. It's a form of protection for Nigeria, especially in importing manufacturer goods, it's important that we protect. Now, America is technically looking at how do we gain more dominance in Nigeria. The truth is that there are ways we can go about this. First is to wrap up with our own production and ensure that our producers locally can compete with the rest of the world. And I'm talking of agro and agro processing, as well as light industry, because it will be a disaster if we allow America to gain dominance and come into our country to sell at will to us, because it's going to be practically difficult for Nigerians to compete in that space. And that is why we should know the limit of where theoretical macroeconomic policy, where it stops, and what we need to do per time, of course, when it affects issues of competition as a nation. So for me, I think now that America has made a position, it's important for us to have an evaluation and decide how it's going to affect us, and decision we need to take in no time.
All right, Mr. Paul Alaje, I do feel a duty to say that where Zimbabwe is concerned, tobacco is a massive backbone to the economy, and the majority of the exports do go to the United States. So I think they did feel that if there was any hindrance to the export of tobacco, the economy would be exposed to further shocks. I'm just trying to speak for my people there, but I know you've got to travel this morning. Thank you so much for your time, Paul Alaje. Always insightful, and definitely you've left us with a lot to reflect on this morning.